I'm all for it, but what the holy bananas? So
I'm on
anyway,
board with it. I love it.
I'm good with it, kinda. So
I'm
just
curious,
heads up.
where are those people working and can I get a job there?
I know, right? So I guess. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. I know we're going to have people trickling in. I am recording this. If you don't want that to happen, you should let me know, please. I think I know everybody here. And sorry, I'm texting folks as well, the Zoom link right now. And for those of you that don't know, and for posterity purposes in the recording, I'll say that I am Dion Major, and I have been in sales, leadership, and tech for quite a while at this point. And I want to share a little bit of my origin story, and then we're going to dive into what Lead with Soul is all about and why it matters, how you use it. And we're going to hear from some of the folks that graciously gave their time to be interviewed for the book today. So quite a few of you are here, and thank you. So I probably didn't prep you all well enough to say, hey, be prepared to give a few sentences, like be prepared to talk a little bit. So there's two reasons for Lead with Soul. The first is really the impetus of what started me on my journey. And there were two reasons, one external and a couple internal. I was one of the last roles I had as a practitioner before I went out on my own. I was in an organization and I was scheduled to do a skip level meeting with I think, president of our division or the RVP, right? Probably the RVP of the division, maybe president. Either way. And literally, in the year I was with this organization, I did one skip level meeting for creating a brand new team that I took from 0 to 1 million in 9 months with 6 people in an organization that had never done anything like this before. Granted, large organization, $1 million kind of a drop in the bucket, but still really cool and a lot of cool lessons that could have been parlayed. Hence, if we had had conversations ongoingly. And so this particular individual, for his one-on-ones, had a one pager. He wanted information presented that way. The his chief of staff came, sent me the one pager. We talked through it, filled out all the information, whole 9 yards, right? Email it ahead of time. Now, granted, this was also 14 years or so ago. Things were very different, so you got to take all of this with a grain of salt. And so went through the whole prep process, emailed it to him, printed it off, took it into the meeting. And I'm a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser, y'all. I'm gonna put it out there for you. I want to do the right thing. I'll work, work, work. And I walk into his office, assuming I've done all of the things. I've crossed the T's, dotted the I's, put the piece of paper down on the desk, slid it across. And as I'm going to sit down, my butt doesn't even touch the chair. And he looks at me, looks down at this paper and looks at me and says, am I supposed to read this? I, I had three instantaneous thoughts go through my head. And because we're being recorded and it's against FCC rules to swear, I'll leave that one alone for now. But my stomach literally dropped. And I wanted to say, I don't know. Are you? It's your meeting. This is your process. What the? I don't know. I want to do the right thing. And it just disintegrated from there. I think I was out of there in like 10 minutes. And my whole goal is to one, not be that leader, two, surround myself with leaders who aren't that leader either, and started my journey of working with organizations to see that people actually want to show up and do really good things. And so that was really the external motivation for it. And maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. I don't care. It was shitty leadership. And that's the spark of Lead with Soul. We all have bad days. None of us have all the answers, and we're not supposed to. We are supposed to lead our people and lead our people well. And we can only do that if we lead ourselves well, which begs, how do we know how to lead ourselves well? Which is where Lead with Soul is coming from. Because if you can't name it, you can't tame it. If you can't articulate it, you can't teach it. And so many times we jump into a leadership role, and we're like, I got this, and we're charging off. and we're running a million miles in one direction and there's nobody behind us because they just went, I don't know what you're doing. Anybody has children and teenagers specifically, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So today, and again, thank you everybody for joining. What we want to talk about today and consider this moment of time, right? Like Bud was saying, we're all stretched between meetings. We're running, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing Christmas shopping, we're holiday shopping, whatever holiday you celebrate. And we're trying to do the right thing and show up and be a good human. And that's what today is really about taking a breath before we hit 2026. This is our moment to have a leadership reset. And what we want to think about is building our leadership to the point where we don't have more noise. We don't have templates, right? I got templates. I got ways to manage my calendar coming out my ears. But what we want to do and we want to think about and what Lead with Soul is really the bridge between everything we know as a leader and the system that makes it work. Because a lot of times that's what we're missing and our team is missing is a system and structure. So in the chat right now, this is participant. This isn't an passive time right now, but in the chat, where are you at in your leadership season right now? What is one word that would describe your leadership season? And so, for those of you that we've worked together, we've talked before, you know how much I love the grouping of three things. So, the book itself is broken into three specific sections: identify, specify, and execute. Because how many times have we gone down a path of execute and we haven't identified, nor have we specified what good looks like? Who has a playbook they haven't revisited in 10 years? Yeah, right? Or a process or a dashboard or whatever, right? So the book itself is broken down into three specific parts: identify, specify, execute. And this conversation is going to be broken down into the what, the why, the how. So Lead with Soul is the first book that guides you to create your own leadership methodology that harmonizes your hard skills and your soft skills. There's a time and a place for command and control and a wartime consigliere. I'm going to say that we're not there anymore. And so we really, really need a skill set that is unprecedented. We have never, ever been in such a time that has required us as leaders to step up and step into having our own leadership methodology that allows us to orchestrate and see people to bring out the best in them. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what Lead with Soul does, because leaders keep learning, but very few of us have ever been taught how to operationalize what we know consistently to bring out the best in our team. Because if I hear or read one more time that must be able to work in an ambiguous environment, I'm literally going to scream. All that is code for we're lazy. I'm fierce. One of my key words is fierce, for those of you that don't know. Ambiguity simply means we haven't identified our priorities yet. And so, what we want to be able to do is take our ambiguity and turn it into agility. Lead with Soul is bottom line focus that allows you to be heart centered because behavior is caught, not taught. Again, any of you have children, you know this. And any of you that have people that maybe aren't doing what you think they should be doing, we need to look at our own behavior. So Lead with Soul isn't theory. It's built from 20 some odd years of what I've done. It's built from working with teams, listening. Amira, I learned from you the beautiful art of active listening. It's built from our interviewees that are joining us today. So Graydon and Ron and Janine and Amira, and I'm looking at everybody. Scott, Mark is part of our Revenue by Design executive group. So many contributed to this book and sharing their insights. Matt Schwab talked about what is Lead with Soul is do the next right thing. Amira, you talked about trust and transparency is the foundation and clarity is oxygen. Carrie DeGroot talked about your team will mirror your energy and professionalism. Jeff Nixon talked about leadership is the moment, the one you can't plan for when your team needs you to show up as human. So the question I have for you is, how would you say you're leading with soul today? And Amira or anybody who was an interviewee, if you're thinking something right now about what is lead with soul, share what that is for a moment in time. I'm not going to ask you to speak for too long, but share what lead with soul is to you and how you've seen it impact you and your teams going forward.
I'm happy to share. So
Yeah,
for me, honestly, it's authenticity, compassion, and deep, deep humanity.
yeah,
Remembering that leadership is not a title. We're talking about relationships.
yeah,
And so that for me is the crux of it.
yeah. I love that. I love that. Deep humanity. I love what Janine you said too, which is don't weaponize the numbers. Use them to ask better questions. It is so easy to go into a meeting and get our cookies handed to us because we haven't hit the numbers. It takes
Mhm.
a lot of maturity to hear and see past that emotion to get to a point of asking better questions. Amira, how about you? Give us an example of what lead whistle looks like for you.
Oh, I mean, I think it's so much about like bringing your whole self to the role that you have, right? I am like I think on so many levels I'm this very deeply feeling human.
Yes,
So whenever I have to like have a hard conversation with somebody or it might whatever it might be, it's definitely like using my left hand. I'm a right-handed person, so it's just like it feels awkward. It's something I have to prepare for, and I've been in leadership for a very long time. But to this day, it is still uncomfortable. It is still not something I enjoy doing. I don't like conflict. I'm a Libra 100% through and through. And so just having that honest conversation with whoever I need to talk to, like, hey, I know I need to do it because the most respect I can give to that person is to make sure that I'm giving them the coaching that they need. But then at the same time, like I will lead authentically and that I'll say, look, this is really like this is uncomfortable for me. So please just like bear with me, or I'm gonna, ask for forgiveness in advance. If I say something that might come out of context, and if I say something that hurts your feelings or that you don't like, whatever it might be, please like let me know. But I feel I have to have this conversation with you, or I'm not being true to my brand. And so I think
100%.
for me, that's something is like, how do I show up authentically? And I'm sure some people would say, oh, well, Mira, that's not very leadership like, or whatever it might be. But to me, that's my authentic leadership. And so each one of us is going to show up differently.
100%.
When we're forced to use our left hand, especially like it's the easy times are the easy times, right? That's when we're all at our best. It's when the shit hits the fan that,
Yep,
you really see somebody's true colors. So
100%. And stress makes us ugly, right?
not
On
hitting
this
my
thing,
numbers kind of makes me a little bit ugly too, if I'm totally honest. Revenue cures all ills for a
it
salesperson.
does.
It's
It
tough.
does. And lack of it exposes, right? Certain things, whether we like it or not. And so, again, there's a little bit of maturity that's required when we think about what does it mean to lead with soul, right? Ron, Graydon, Scott, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do have a few, and I want to capitalize on something, or at least coattail on something Amir
Please.
just said. But I frame it in terms of transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reality is, if you need to take somebody, aside and say, I'm not on the sales side, I'm on an engineering side of business, but the same token, if you need to, you know, give constructive feedback on some sort of performance issue, the reality is, a team that leads with soul, you don't have to do that. They're doing it for you. They'll be more saying, I missed this mark, I missed that mark. I'm sorry I let you down. I will work twice as hard. I'll, this or that or the other thing. It's not a me coming down to you and saying you missed the mark. They're coming up and saying I missed the mark, and I don't like my performance for it, and these things got in the way, and maybe I need help with this or that. But the transparency of that, when you talk about leading with soul, my experiences have been, when you don't have to dictate, you don't have to demand, you don't have to command. You have a whole group of people that are
Mm-hmm.
completely sharing that which needs to be done, and no one shirks the responsibility. They're the
Right.
first ones that jump into the fire. You don't need to ask, you don't need to push, you don't need to post. And so everyone works as a symbiotic entity.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love it. Thank you, Ron. Graydon, Scott, any additional context to add around what is Lead with Soul?
Yeah, I could add some comments, and I'll add to what Ron said, and also a comment Janine made. I think we're very appropriate. But I remember reading years ago that Dwight Eisenhower, the former general and president, he used to show as an example to leadership, and he'd put a string on the table, and he'd say, "Okay, if you push it, look what happens, but if you pull it, look what happens." So I think leadership, leading with soul, or just good leadership in general, is about getting people to do the right thing even when you're not there,
Yeah.
by leading them properly with influence. And back to what Janine said, it's not about authority and title. I mean, if you have the highest title and people don't believe in you, they're not going to follow you. If you have no title, but they believe in you, they will follow you.
100%.
So I think working with people to ensure that they're doing the right thing, not just tactically mean that they know what to do as part of
Yep.
leadership, is to guide them the right direction, but they're going to do it to the best of their ability. Back to what Deming said, right? Quality is pride of workmanship. I think ultimately, when you're not there, you're not watching, which is 99% of the time for most of your folks. You have to know that they're doing the right things. And so leading them to the point where they really have the best interests of the business at heart, they know when to ask for help, they know when to accept responsibility if there's an issue, ask for help so that you can jump in and fix a problem with them. That's very, very key. And I've seen a lot of leaders that are very good tactically. They know what to do and how to do it, and they write great spreadsheets and Gantt charts and so forth. But they just struggle getting people to do the right thing when no one's watching. And then the next project meeting, if you have them weekly, you're a week behind because people just haven't been focusing on that. So
Hmm.
that's really what I think is key.
Yeah. I agree with you. Accountability is not a dirty word for
No,
sure. Scott, how
absolutely.
about you? Thoughts on what is Lead with Soul?
Um, just to kind of dovetail on the other responses, I would say, like, I'm a very passionate and competitive person, and I wear it, and that manifests in different ways. And I think what I've learned, over the course of my career is a couple things. Control how it manifests, because they're going to take a lead off of that. Just like with your kids. The other thing is I wear it, right? So like Graydon just mentioned, I want to see people that are wearing the business and the results as if it were their own, right?
Hmm.
And if they're coming to me with an issue and a resolution, great. But it's a matter of, if there is an issue, what is the urgency to solve this, right? And that's where, to me, it's like that's almost better than a review or a 360 or something like that. When there's a problem, how does that person react to the problem?
Yep.
And hopefully I've displayed enough, different manifests at that point that shows how I would handle it. Even if it's not the way I would handle it, they have their own way to do it. But again, seeing autonomy from that person is a huge, huge thing.
100%. Yeah, we need to trust our team. I think one of the questions I asked all of the folks, all of the leaders that agreed to graciously give their time to be interviewed, one of the very first questions was, I think the first question was, what are your non-negotiable values and why? And trust, honesty, transparency literally was the first one. There's a whole table of them in the book. So, but it's important. And I keep hearing that, right? And now trust is a bi-directional thing that needs to happen. And so really, really important. And that is what Lead with Soul is all about, is this bridging of humanity with accountability. And again, it's not a dirty word, everybody. So I can't tell you how many times I talk with leaders and coach leaders on a weekly basis of my team just isn't doing what I asked them to do or we talked about. And there's a reason for it at the end of the day, which is dovetails into why Lead with Soul matters now. Why does this matter now in 2025 heading into 2026? I firmly believe we're in an unprecedented time where, as a leader, we are being asked and tasked to work with our team in ways that we've never done before. And that requires a whole different skill set at the end of the day, in my humble opinion. And maybe it's just me because Amira, like you, I'm not a feelings person. I am, but I didn't know how to use them, right? Because I'm the first person to be like, "What are you doing?" And that's not appropriate sometimes, right? So that is not going to bring the best out in people. Being able to harness what we know, how we know it, is where we're at today. And that is going to make all the difference. I'm sure you've all seen and read the articles. Teams today want purpose. We want to know, they want to know where we're going, why we're going there, how we're getting there. Is there a rhythm, or am I just showing up every day banging on a keyboard? What am I doing? This is why Lead with Soul matters now, matters today. And we're not overwhelmed as leaders. It's not that we don't have the skills, we just don't have a system. And so, in talking with all of the leaders who were interviewees for this book, every single one has a system, values identified, an operating rhythm, accountability loops, communication loops, set KPIs. And it's not to say that there isn't room for flexibility, but there's a set structure and system, like lines on the road at the end of the day. And those lines exist, and we know how fast to go. We know those lines get us from point A to point B, because without purpose defined, abuse is inevitable. Just like Graydon was talking about, the minute we don't have a purpose for our team beyond we're here to make revenue or we're here to launch, we don't have a why behind it. Our team's like, whatever, okay, so dude over there with shares and equity gets whatever he or she is going to get, but that doesn't mean anything for me. I actually might be out of a job. So we need to be able to see all different aspects of what is purpose at the end of the day. And without systems in place, culture becomes accidental. So we're either deliberately building our culture and our values, and they're more than simply something plastered on our walls, or we're not at the end of the day, because our people feel effort and energy. We feel effort and energy. Have you ever been talking to somebody and we live in such a distracted world, they literally get up and walk away in the middle of a sentence? Oh my gosh.
Or take a text.
Right? Now, I've been guilty of that. So, and so what I will say, and that's okay, right? But I'm getting better at it too. And the only reason I'll do it is if I'm 911 for my kids. And to what Amira was saying when she's talking about one-on-ones with difficult conversations, I'm going to give context. I'm going to say the only people that have access to me 24/7 are my children. Everybody else is an adult. Figure it out.
Yeah, Dion,
Yeah,
I think you're spot on with the idea of purpose, because I was going to say that I think
please.
leading with soul is all those things that we're talking about, but I think the overarching umbrella is purpose,
Yeah.
because you can do all the tactical things well, and you should,
Yes.
but if there's
100%.
not a clear kind of repeating and recommunicating the purpose and mission of your group or organization, that's everything. I led Taco Bell's executive and leadership development for a long, very long time. And my team that I led, I kept repeating over and over, our purpose is to make our leaders the best leaders on the planet and help them be the best people on the planet. And that was motivational. I think I treated people well with all the tactical and process things, but I think that mission is something that people can get behind and excited
Yeah.
about. And then I left to take care of my mom with Alzheimer's, and I felt I was the leader of her care, and I led core sort of direct caregivers at home, and then extended team with doctors and support staff and PT at home, and you name it. But I kept repeating to everybody, whether it was a direct caregiver or a doctor or anybody else on the team, that my purpose, now their purpose, if you want to be on the team, is to help my mom live happier, healthier, and longer. And that was their mission and my mission. And I was surprised. I mean, our kind of direct caregivers were, they were all kind of, nursing assistants. They weren't, they were excited by that mission more than just me treating them well and giving them, decent pay and all these things. That was what kind of brought them. And I had, in a high turnover environment, I had zero turnover And I had these people for like 6, 7 years taking care of my mom. And I think it's all about purpose. They were excited about the mission.
Yeah. I agree with you, Mark, on that, right? It gives us context, it gives us meaning, it gets us energized at the end of the day. Anybody else have an example of a time where you were so locked in on a purpose? It's invigorating, isn't it?
Big time.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
becomes a religion.
Yes.
Yeah, it comes out of every pore, every statement. It's in everything you say and everything you do, and
Yeah.
it's hard to hide.
Yeah. I think that's it. And then what for people that are aligned with that purpose, the minute somebody isn't, the tribe hives them out. And that's what we want, right? That's how we get that self-driving team at the end of the day. And Mark, you hit on something too. One of the things I did this year is I got my NLP coaching certification because I love neuroscience. I love the fact that it's a thing nowadays. And I love the fact that there are organizations and people that make it really easy to understand because it's hard. I have my NLP certification, and part of what's in the book is citing these resources and stats back to reputable neuroscience organizations, because under stress, our brain defaults to survival mode, and which is judgment, fear, and control, which is the worst place to be ever for an extended period of time, like longer than a second. And so our saboteur brain, for those of you that have read Positive Intelligence, kicks in and takes over and starts driving the bus. And nothing good comes from that either. And so, lead with soul is our muscle memory and trains us to recognize that pattern, shift us back into the sage brain, which is empathize and explore and innovate and navigate and activate quicker and lead our team more effectively. And so it's literally a shift in neural activity that directly increases psychological safety, which drives our performance, which, great into your point, gives us the team that starts taking ownership when they know they're not going to have a beat down on their hands. People will take the chances at the end of the day. Oh, sorry. Who was going to say something? So the question I have for everybody, for those of you in a leadership role, where in your leadership do you feel currently might be the most ambiguity? And what do you think might be the next 1 to 2 steps you can take to get rid of that ambiguity in your leadership methodology? So what would that look like for you?
Hey Dion, I
And
just wanted to jump in for 1 second.
please,
I upskill knowledge workers with AI, and this the idea of leading with soul is so important because it aligns with the idea of human in the loop, which is what I'm stumping about every single day. And we know that folks are scared about AI and what it's going to take their job and what the future
of
looks like and
course.
all of that type of thing. So it's this message around keeping the humans
Yes.
in the loop with AI as it relates to bias and guardrails and governance and just, the teams that I work with where we have really good leaders, like it's just so obvious because that, first of all, they're the ones that are in the training, in the trenches with their team, but also they're making it very clear that none of them are going to be replaced, that we are working to help their organization be more effective all the way around so that they can take more purposeful roles and purposeful tasks because we're helping to get those tasks that are repetitive and not as much fun sort of done faster with AI. And so
Yeah.
it's really with AI, in the workplace as we know it is, this idea of humans in the loop and what you're talking about with leading with soul is just really critical for our next, evolution with leaders.
Thank you. I agree. I clearly agree with you, right? Amira, Scott, how about you? Why do you think Lead with Soul is needed now?
I'm here. Um, I think lead with soul is important now. So I have a couple CHROs in my life, and the conversation that's been coming up a lot is we're in a phase in time where people are afraid of robots taking our jobs, right? And I don't think there's
Hmm.
any time in recent history that's been more obvious that people are important. And I don't think reassurance is the right word, but the more you can lead people into a position that is of importance, of mission critical, and help them understand, just to what Yvette was speaking to, how do you adapt to this new tool? Not a tool, or excuse me, it's not here to replace you, it's a tool.
Right.
So I do think right now, good leadership, positive leadership, reinforcement is probably more important than it's ever been because there's not a lot of positivity, and cynicism is leading the charge in the job market. So, the ability to again just keep people close to you and keep them inspired by you is probably the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. How about you, Amira? Thank you, Scott.
Honestly, I think we are more remote than we've ever been, right? I mean, ever since COVID, like up until COVID, like it was like
Yep.
butt and seat for me. And
100%.
and so it's like this remoteness, like there's just a general lack of connection,
Yeah.
both physical and I think psychological, probably emotional as well. And so I think with all of that, the more that we can lead with soul and create more connection, I think the more probably connected we'll feel, like selfishly, right? I think we're like for me, I feel like work is more of a grind than it's ever been as a leader.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether it's because this is just the phase of life that I'm in. Like that's how I describe my phase. It's grinding, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
I
know if
agree.
it's my phase of life or what's happening, but all I know is that it just feels different now than it did 6 years ago, right?
Yes.
There's not and as many of those high five moments. There's not as much joy. And I don't know why. So maybe this is something that like selfishly we need as leaders as much as our staff needs it from us. It's my 2 cents.
I think that's fair. We don't have a finish line or a win at the end of the day. We're not getting the regular dopamine hits.
I think
We're
just
just,
just kind of a build on that. I think you
yeah.
guys are spot on. I think the kind of pulling it together, I think it's a competitive advantage because I think it's, labor market is getting more competitive. It's labor is short. It's hard to find good people. And I think leading with soul is a differentiator. And so I think that's the way to stand above the crowd in terms of getting the best people because people want a connection. They want to feel like there's a clarity of purpose, that they're working for great people and they have a great culture.
Yeah.
And that's about leading with soul. And I think that's a differentiator that make you or your company stand out from the crowd and get the best people and keep the best people.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. That is so spot on. And definitely, when I'm teaching, one of the things that I say to adult learners all the time is it's not soft to think about culture. It's not soft to think about treating people appropriately and with kindness and all those things. Truthfully, it is a competitive advantage. Culture is one of the things, especially now in 2026, especially with the new people entering the workforce, that is prime. That is one of the main reasons they take jobs and they stay with jobs. And so it helps you when leaders show up with authenticity and purpose, teams align so much faster, which means your culture stabilizes so much faster. Engagement skyrockets. Those kind of things encourage retention, innovation, productivity, like all of the things. And so soul isn't the soft stuff. It's the
Nope.
smart stuff that drives sustainable performance. And so understanding that and being able to lead from that purpose is prime.
Yeah.
I think that's so good, such a good point, Janine. I was just thinking the same thing as somebody that entered the workforce in the mid 80s. That
Mhm.
very sort of authoritarian, really management,
Mhm.
managerial
Command and control.
style of leadership was what I grew up through. And it was very much you just do what you do because that's your job.
Yeah.
And if that's, sort of what you grew up through, and you're trying to translate that same leadership style to the younger generations, they're not going to respond to that. So if you really want to be able to, bring those people in, and there's some brilliant, younger people that, they have a lot to offer, and they do have a good work ethic, despite what Facebook would tell you or Instagram might tell you. But their perspective and the lens that they're looking at things through is very, very different. And if you can't, as a current leader, be able to adapt to and communicate with the younger generation that has a different perspective or and different expectations of their leaders, you're really going to struggle to hire amazing talent and retain that amazing talent, because they're not going to be interested. And this is coming from I'm a Capricorn. I'm very bossy and I like to boss people around. But it's not the most effective way to get things done. And so, that's something that I definitely
Yeah.
had to learn as I grew through leadership roles, that, I wanted to help people to be engaged. And as I started to deal with, much younger generations, then you really have to be able to adapt, or they can't hear you. And if
Yeah.
you can't bring that soul into your conversation so that they feel that they are seen and heard, they're not going to hear you either. And so it's really, to me, that leadership with soul is definitely how you bridge generational gaps as well.
Yeah.
Couple of
It is. I agree. Anybody else thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to add another thought to that. When you first asked the question, Dion, a couple of things came to my mind, and they've been touched on. One of the things is remoteness. Coming COVID-19, everybody was working remote if you wanted to survive. But add to that the layer of social media that enables people to kind of opine with remaining a bit anonymous. And so you have this invisible barrier between you and your work if you're part of the remote type culture, which I think the leadership with soul enables to reinstall. It's a tool to reinstall or reinsert the humanity in the relationships that are required for good success. Another thing that kind of came to my mind is this impending AI revolution, which
Right.
adds a layer of uncertainty and fear, especially, well, I would say it's at every level, but the entry levels right now are feeling that anxiety. And then add to that just the cultural changes
Yeah.
that are taking place at this time. It's the perfect time for leading with soul to be used as a tool to insert again humanity back into each of those elements, bring them kind of back together by purpose.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, yeah, I think that's such good points made by all of you. And so we're gonna go into our how, and then I'm gonna ask, because I think this is kind of we'll end with, as much as you're all comfortable with, the leaders that interviewed, that gave me their time and were interviewees for the book, would love to hear some of your success stories. Right. So I know great, and your story is phenomenal, Amira, your journey, I know fairly well, right? So I think that's kind of the ring the bell moment, where it's like, hey, I took a team from here to here. One of our interviewees took his team from 300 million to a billion. And the numbers don't lie at the end of the day. But it's work. I mean, Amira, to your point, like it's hard to grind it out at the end of the day. But I want to talk about how, because so many times, I don't know about you, you go, and I love talking about all this stuff, right? Clearly love talking about this stuff. But I think sometimes I'm always like, how does this work? And so I want to share with you a couple of things. I'm going to share with you two things, and I'm doing this so my team also has time to get their thoughts together. And so, but two things, and Janine, to your point on the soft skills are not soft. So I put together, can everybody see my screen?
You can zoom a little bit.
Can you see, what are you seeing? What are you all seeing? Are you seeing an Excel sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, I don't know sizing wise what that looks like, but basically, oh Lord, that's way too big. Um, so what this is it's a 5C assessment simply in Excel, and it's going through clarity, communication, culture, conversion, and consistency. And you give yourself a score on all of those. This is not a 360. This doesn't go to anybody but the leader and a trusted leader that they have, right? Because the whole point is to look at the numbers and potentially the disparity between them, right? Like in this case, this person gave themselves a 7 on consistency, but a 20 on communication. I'm going to call maybe not so much on that one, right? The beauty of this, though, comes on the ROI and looking at the revenue lift of it. And so, granted, we're not going to go crazy on numbers here. If you want to, we can talk about this more. Um, bye, Scott. Thank you. Um, on the second tab, though, is pulling information in from the first sheet on the assessment. So yellow, you input your own numbers. Purple is comes in from the sheet previously. Green is auto calculated. And so this is where it gets a little self-driven. And so, Janine, to your point, and what we're hearing here is, do we have the discipline to write a KPI that's more of a behavior-based goal for ourselves? And if we keep that behavior-based goal month over month, we give ourselves 1 point of revenue lift for every month we keep that goal. Conversion is easier to track than the others, right? So I know some of you that are, if numbers are your first language, I'm sure you have a ton of questions. When we start breaking this down, though, and we say, oh, I could, if I was consistent in my communication, how am I going to write a behavior-based goal? I'm going to say that 90% of my SOPs are documented. I have a clear onboarding plan. I have a clear everboarding plan. We have a what, why, how in all of our communication, whatever that looks like for you. But this is something that I walk through with teams, and it kind of gets their brains going that says, oh, if I do this, I can do Y at the end of the day. So I would love to kind of hear what you're all thinking about that. The other component, and it's in the book, and there's a blank version and there's a completed version for people, is this notion of filling out your leadership methodology one pager, to sit down and put pen to paper at the end of the day. Because I have not seen any research yet that says typing notes is the same as writing notes and writing things out. So we think about our leadership methodology one pager, and we're calling out our values, our purpose statement, dashboards that are succinct and carry 3 KPIs for my board, for me, my team. I write out my standards of excellence. For me, early in my career, being on time was super important. I literally locked my team out of meetings. So I've relaxed since then, but it got the point across and nobody was late ever again. But we talk about our standards of excellence, of whatever that is for you. But once you write it down and memorialize it along with your operating rhythms, right? Week 1 is a retrospective. Week 2 is a pipeline review. Week 3 is an all hands on deck, close stuff out. Week 4, we don't do anything because we're busy focusing on client conversations or whatever that looks like. But now everybody knows. And then you can put your results in from your 5C leadership pulse assessment and then the current quarter priorities, because if we don't know what they are, again, we're just banging on a keyboard doing stuff we think should be done without any direction. So, Mark, reactions to what I was just saying and sharing, and then I'd like to segue into hearing some success stories from our interviewees. Mark, thoughts?
Oh, I think those are terrific. I mean, I think people need a process and ways to measure, their effectiveness and their methodology, and I think that makes total sense. I mean, I like it, and I think the idea of doing kind of a little bit of self-assessment and kind of thinking through how you operate and what's important to you and is Perfect. I mean, that's really important. Really important.
Yeah, thank you. And so from the folks that are here, I know Scott had to go to the airport. So Graydon and Ron and Janine and Amira, share with us some of your highlights from your career, because you've all been doing this for a while and have refined and honed your own leadership methodology. And there's no book out there that guides you and teaches you how to create a leadership methodology. There just isn't. It's all bits and pieces. And we're left as leaders trying to figure out what the heck do we do and how do we do it. This book, it's not even a book, it's a guide that gets us and gives us time to think. And it's short, I promise, it's short. You can get through it fairly quickly. Execution is a whole different story. But with that, I would love to hear some of your success stories. So anybody who would like to go first?
I'm always happy to share, you know that.
I know, I love it. Go.
So, in one of the companies that I worked for, I inherited a team that was known as the F-ups of the group.
Oh man.
And, 60 people who were blamed for basically anything and everything that went
Oh
wrong.
no.
And so, thinking about I'm thinking about what you just shared as far as the rubric for
Yeah.
kind of measuring that success. And I wish I had something like that because, truthfully, my methodology initially was to bolster their own feelings about themselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm not lying when I said they were the scapegoat. If anything went wrong, it was post-closing did that. Post-closing did that.
Woo!
Oh, I'm sure it got lost in post-closing. And so
Nice.
I really
Excellent.
went on what I'm going to call a campaign to not only, polish up their reputation, but also to create systems and process that supported a better teamwork, a better effort so that things didn't go missing. And, rightfully so, things were missing. And it was post-close's fault. And there was just no system. There was no leader that really took an interest and cared about what they were doing. They were in the dungeon. Like there was so much about it that was bad. And so, the long and the short of it is turned it around to where, the CEO of the company, if he would hear anybody say something like, oh, well, I bet, that happened in post close, he would immediately say, no, it didn't. Did not happen in post close. Look in your own backyard, see what happened there. Because Janine's not
Woo!
running that kind of shop. And so, but I didn't have the metrics like this to go back and show the team and share with the team instead. I mean, we had the results because obviously we had, tracking for different things that weren't there before. And so, from that standpoint, I think a tool like this could really help, the CEO to talk about it with his, board and say, this is, what happened in post close, and here's the measurement results from, these successes.
Yep.
Ultimately, it was probably one of my biggest and favorite successes.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
And isn't it so great when you have the leadership giving you the air cover that we all so desperately want and need?
For sure.
Woo! Amira, how about you?
I would say that my biggest successes probably come from my reps.
Yeah.
When they like it's actually, I mean, it's not as frequent as I would like, of course, but I will literally every once in a while, it'll probably be like every 6 months or so, I'll get like a random email from one of my former reps. It'll just say,
Yes.
Amira, you know what? Like, thank you for giving me the chance, for taking a risk on me. Thank you for the coaching that you gave me.
Yep.
Like I'm in my life, like I have, like I literally got this the other day. I have my home and my wife and my daughters because of the chance you took on me at a really tough time in my career. And I thank you so much. So I think that's, I guess, what makes the grind all worth it
It does.
someday. But
And yeah.
but yeah, that's probably the thing that for me like reminds me of why we do what we do.
Yeah, I agree. Ron, Graydon, how about you?
Well, for me, let me kind of paint the background, and that is 2009. I left a $2 billion public company as a global director, and started working with a private company, $10 million company as a project manager. And so this is in a medical device development environment. And I was probably there 6 months working on one of the projects that was run out of our arm in Germany.
Mm,
When the second of the project managers left the company, there was kind of no one else to run the project. The CEO asked me to step into that role. Half of the project was developed here in Irvine, software and electronics, but the mechanics and mechanical engineering team was in Germany. The client was in Germany and manufacturing was in Germany, and the project was kind of deemed to be very, very problematic. The development, the instrument that we were developing was an immunochemistry analyzer. So that brought me to Germany 2 weeks out of every month, and it ended up being for about 2.5 years, and ended up changing the project around, getting it into manufacturing. That system now has FDA approval. It has European approval. It has had so many iterations. But the challenge was for me getting into Germany, learning the German culture, being able to lead that team as well as the client, because the last person the client wanted was a non-German person running their project. And he made it clear to my CEO, and my CEO did not say to him, he's the only guy I have, but he's the only guy that you want. In the end, again, the product is still on the market. It has had multiple iterations of it. And in a public forum, you never see this from an old stoic German guy, but the leader of the company that I turned the project around for and fixed all the technical problems and got it into production, gave me a hug and a kiss publicly in front of about 150 people. And it was never ever, but he hated it to begin with. And I think the success was just turning him around, because then his entire company turned around. Our organization in Germany turned around, and it was fun. It was brutal. 2 weeks out of every month for 2.5 years in Germany. I had an apartment there, and I called home one time, and I expected somebody to answer the phone that had a young voice, and my son answered the phone. I said hello, and he said, "Hi, Dad." And I said, "Nick, when did you get that voice?"
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it's amazing what we do, right? Well, everybody, I'm sorry we don't have time for more stories, but we will. And thank you for joining today. I'll leave you with why I think Lead with Soul is also important is the trust factor with our teams. Our employee engagement scores, our employee trust scores, according to Gallup, are at about 23%, 30%, meaning 70% don't trust leadership, which is leading to an $8 trillion GDP drain. And as leaders, if we want to know where the money is, it's in our attitude. And that's why Lead with Soul in the book blends the two, because yeah, we signed up for a number. We signed up for pushing a product to market, which ergo is the start of the revenue funnel, right? So whatever that looks like at the end of the day, we can do it without leaving our team in the dust and the dirt and grinding ourselves down in the
A
process.
compelling number. That's a hugely compelling number.
Yes, this is why I do what I do, right? Because that's the number that gets everybody's attention, Ron, and hopefully will change behavior. And so behavior is caught, not taught. And we're not going to change without purpose. And so for some people, the purpose is the number. Great. You know what? Money motivated all day long and twice on Sunday, go for it. I will speak your love language. Right. And so we need to meet people where they are. And if that's the number, then that's the number. So coming at it though, and having our own methodology that blends the two for those of us that don't want to, Roderick was here and he left, but he literally got to a point where he had a stroke, right? Like there's a better way than sabotaging our own health in the mix of it. So please get on the wait list if you haven't yet. Hopefully the book will be out early Q1 of 2026. If you want to talk more, you can. I have a whole leadership library as well for folks. It's not a course. I think everybody's coursed out. God bless COVID. It's a library with quick and easy podcasts and tools that you can use to do this on your own. If you want to book a workshop for one of your teams, we can. But it's more important that we change the leadership landscape going into 2026 and beyond, because our people need it and change starts with us. So thank you for joining. I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please make sure you connect with folks, get on the wait list. And if you want to talk more, let me know.
Great
Thank
work,
you,
Neil.
Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations.
Good.
Appreciate
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye. Thank you.